Hey guys, and welcome to this VOD review of the first game between SKT and KSV, the former Samsung Galaxy. I've been wanting to take a look at this game for quite a while now. I think it's a very good game. It's been some time since I watched the game, so I don't have it fresh in my memory at all. It's also fairly old. It's from the last week of LCK. They've been on vacation for a week now, so we'll just jump straight into it. It's on 1.5, so it'll be a bit quicker. Looking here at the pick and ban phases, I like the idea that they're banning out the gangplank, because Val has shown that he knows how to play this gangplank up in top side. He's a good carry as well on that gangplank, so you don't want to give that over, obviously. And then Zoe is something that Faker has been prioritizing so much recently as a pick, so I think it's smart for them to ban that away. And obviously Sajani is there as a pick that if you don't want to give that over to KSV and you don't want to first pick it yourself, well, then you have to give it away, because it's just one of the strongest junglers, so you don't give that over to KSV. Faker has been putting a lot of priority on the Galio as well, though, so I think that it's smart that he picks up this. It is a flex pick, obviously, so they aren't sure where it's going, but nonetheless, getting that Galio for themselves also gives SKT a front line to work with, without giving up too much over to KSV, because I think, yes, Israel is still open for the taking, but he isn't that much of a threat in my opinion. Yes, he still has the kleptomancy. It hasn't been that nerfed, so it has been nerfed, patch 8.2, but I don't think that he's the biggest problem. I think that someone like Varus is just way stronger, and because they're not picking up that Varus, it's amazing to see SK Telecom pick up the Varus for themselves, because of him working really well together with the likes of Galio having that front line, but also because of this crowd control scenario combo they can put together. However, Camille is very smart, because you aren't sure where Camille is going. He could go up in top side, you could go to them, you can pretty much go anywhere basically, except for AD carry. Because we've seen her being played everywhere. Braum is a smart decision too. I think that if SK Telecom, they don't want to pick that up, then you have to pick it right here, or else it would have been banned by SK Telecom, as it is probably the best team fighting support in the current meta. Rakan could have been a possibility too, but I do think that Braum is probably the best one. But I want to go back and talk a little bit more about Camille, because I think that when you take away this Camille, you have a flex pick, of course, first of all, but you also get this very good engage. And with them having the possibility of flex it up to either the jungle, up to the top side or the jungle, it does put some pressure onto SK Telecom, as they will not know where it's going. KSV, they could have used this to their advantage by making it so that they would have picked a top laner in the end as the last pick. Instead, they want to try and get Crown onto something comfortable, which I think is fine, considering that Faker is the big carry for SK Telecom and has been this entire split as far. And Ornn obviously is just a good pick, so I like this idea. It fits very well into their composition. So now we have it on the screens. The whole 2-team compositions. I must admit that I'm not that big of a fan of the Taric, honestly. I think Taric is fine. I would much rather have seen something like Rakan. I understand the idea that you want to pick the Taric because of his ult, so that you can dive easier, but I think that someone like Rakan would have been so much more punishing against the likes of a Cassiopeia or a Camille, because of them wanting to dive onto you as well. But nonetheless, they do want to dive on the side of SK Telecom. That's why they have the Galio and they have the Jarvan. They also have the Vladimir with the sustained damage, and they do have Varus with his crowd control too. So they're looking to dive, whereas it's a bit more mid-game team fight oriented by KSV, with a lot of crowd control to work with as well. So there are some clear ways for these two teams to win. For KSV, if we just take a break once we get into the game, their idea of winning the game, it revolves around Crown being able to somewhat control the mid lane, because if he's able to control the lane, then that means that Faker will not be able to roam around. Let me switch my webcam, by the way, there we go. Double webcam, what the hell? How can that be two webcams? Anyways, as I was saying, if Crown can control the mid lane, then Faker cannot roam around, and he will not be able to use his hero's entrance to try and back up Blossom whenever Blossom dives under a tower. For that to happen too, we'll have to see Haru focus around top side and the mid lane. You're not going to be wanting to go down to the bottom side that much. I feel like Ruler and Core JJ should be able to somewhat control the lane. Korean AD carries, whenever they play Ezreal, they always have so much lane control. You have a Braum with an Ignite too, so obviously that means that you will have that control over the lane. So you don't have to focus that much on the bottom side. I would just go to the top side. You have Ornn. Ornn has a lot of crowd control in the early game. He also has the Ignite this time around. So for Haru, who can set up ganks fairly easily with Camille, who has a stun, I would focus on the top side, where you have that extra crowd control, and then focus on spinning that momentum that you get from the top side into the mid lane to try and help Crown shut down Faker. But for SK Telecom, however, their win condition, it is all about getting control over the mid lane. If they can push Crown in, if they can kill Crown perhaps one time, or just force him out of the lane and spend his summoners, well then all of a sudden Faker has control over the lane, which means that he can then start to roam around the map. Blossom is looking to dive. Faker can help him dive easier because of Faker having this extra crowd control. And for SK Telecom, they can visit pretty much every lane. You have crowd control in the bottom side on Varus and Taric. You have follow up in the top side, who has a lot of damage, but at least Faker and Blossom can work together to bring the crowd control up there. And in the mid lane, Faker on the Galio can even put down a lot of damage from this Galio. On this Galio on his own, because of Galio just being a pick that can deal a lot of damage in the early game. He also scales fairly well off of AP. That's why we're seeing a lot of Gallios play the AP Galio as of recently. I like the idea that you see how Ruler and Core JJ, they are trying, Ruler were trying to look for a cheeky Q to begin with, because that would have meant that he could have proc the Clatomancy. So in terms of the jungle starts, we're seeing Haru and Blossom start, Haru starting top side on the red buff, and Blossom starting on the red buff, the opposite lane. So that means that they will just swap scuttles. There will be a scuttle crab coming in from Blossom and a scuttle crab coming in from Haru in the bottom side. And this means that Haru is focusing on playing towards the bottom side to, for now, control the lanes that way. If Crown can then get control this way, because now they have control over the river in the bottom side. You also have a pushing lane down in the bottom side coming in from Ruler and Core JJ, and this means that Crown has a lot of pressure to already play from. And for Blossom, he's just thinking, well, Ruler and Core JJ, they have an Ignite, so they have the clear advantage in the bottom side. So let's play towards the top side instead. Where Fall is, he can, with his Ignite, go up against Kuve and try to win that lane. It is an Ocean Drake, first off, in this game. Obviously, it's always nice to get an Ocean Drake in the beginning of a game, because it gives you that extra sustain. I don't think we'll see anyone fight for that Ocean Drake. If it had to be, it should be SKT, because they are a team that are stronger when together. KSV, they are still scaling up. You have Crown, who is focusing on probably going for the Tear of the Goddess. You have Ruler, who is also wanting to go for the Tear of the Goddess, so they'll want to scale up. And therefore, an Ocean Drake, yes, it could be fine, but it's not something that they want to try and force in this game, so that they could get an advantage that way. It's not very often that I do VOD reviews with the speed on 1.5, but I'm doing it now, so that means that the game is going very quickly. Blossom trying to go up into the top side, not looking for the gag, seeing how there's a lot of minions coming from Files, and not wanting to do something cheeky right there. Not going for the chicken Nandos. Anyways, there's not a lot happening, and I can understand why in the current meta well, at least in the meta that we have on patch 8.2, you are wanting to just farm up and get to a point where you have 2 or 3 items. That's where you really want to start putting the pedal to the metal, if you can put it that way, because the game is very punishing. In the early game, you don't have armor and magic resistance anymore, so it's very easy to snowball as well if you just get a few leads. So a lot of people tend to play towards the very late mid game to the late game, which is what we're currently seeing, that nobody's really fighting in this game, which is going to be what is happening. So for this to continue, we're going to have to see the two teams vision up, get vision at the appropriate vision, so that they can continue this very passive playstyle. Looking at Crown, he has precision. That's interesting. Precision. So I want to take a look at his runes real quick now that they are highlighting it after all. Let's look at precision first of all. So he has Coup de Grace, which is understandable. It gives you 7% more damage to champions who have less than 40%. I can understand why. It gives you it gives you the 7% more damage to champions, and it also gives you takedowns on champions. Also gives you an adaptive bonus of 9 attack damage or 15 ability power for 10 seconds. So ultimately that just gives him more damage as the Cassiopeia, because Cassiopeia already is a machine gun. She will already put down so much damage to you. So having the 4 people on the 40%, they'll just die faster. She already puts down so much damage. Very quickly she'll put down a lot of damage. So it's very smart for him to take up this Coup de Grace, going for presence of mind as well, so that he gets extra mana whenever he levels up. Oh, sorry. For 7 seconds after gaining a level or takedown, the mana you spend on abilities is fully restored. So that means whenever he levels up, he can just spam abilities, which is also smart. Mana Flow Band, also going for the Transcendence and Scorch. Nothing out of the out of the ordinary there. Mana Flow Band, free spellcast, Transcendence, 10% CDR, and then you have Scorch. So nothing out of the ordinary at all. except for obviously the position, but I can see why that makes very good sense for him to go that route. I haven't thought about that before, but I can see why you would go for the Coupe de Grace on the Cassiopeia. And also, another thing about presence of mind is that Cassiopeia struggles mainly in the laning phase. So now with her being able to spam abilities whenever she levels up, it's going to be making her life in the laning phase easier, because then she can fight more and poke down someone like Faker. And it's not like she has a lot of problems against Faker in the laning phase anyways. So having the presence of mind just means that she can poke Faker even more, which ultimately is not what he wants, because he will then be forced out of lane. Blossom finding the pick onto Haru. Really smart for him to go all the way in there. You know that Faker will be there all the time with Hero's entrance, so might as well just go all the way in and force Haru's flash. But also because he knew that because of Blossom also knowing that he just took away a lot of the health from Haru, he's able to go down and take the Drake. So now with an Ocean Drake in the hands of SK Telecoms, the life of, let's say, Faker and Bang will be easier, because now they do get that extra mana and health region in lane, which for someone like Faker, who is getting poked out all the time, will just make his life easier. I actually think that KSV, they are doing a fairly good job of warding up in the top side. You had one ward in the brush, the one that Blossom just cleared out. On top of that, you have the Skull Crab, you have every entrance to the top side warded up, and you have a ward in the blue buff. So there's no way that Blossom can do anything in the top side without KSV knowing that. And that's fine, because look at the summoner spells of Core JJ. He has a teleport. He can go to any lane very quickly. Same goes for Wolf, yes. But if it is KSV that pulls the trigger, then they will be the ones coming out ahead, because of them having that momentum rolling with Core JJ being there before Wolf. On top of that, if they fight in the upside, well, Kuve still has his Ignite to work with. So I think that KSV in that sense is doing pretty well to try and keep the lid on Blossom. And Blossom is he's a rookie, so it's hard for him to know the ways of his enemies. He hasn't played against Haru before. He probably has some knowledge of Haru coming into this match, prior to this match, but more than that I don't think, and therefore it also surprises me a little bit that they're able to keep this lid onto Blossom, because of solo queue junglers usually being very non-predictable. Just because of them coming from a solo queue stage, they aren't always the ones to just follow the formula and go for what the team needs. But it's refreshing seeing how they're doing their best to try and keep a lid onto Haru. And now, with Core JJ not having the teleport anymore, KSV, they place a lot of vision down in the bottom side too. Like, look at all the vision that they have in the bottom side. KSV, they are unrelenting in terms of vision, and SK Telecom, they aren't really fighting back. You have a Tear of the Goddess on Wolf for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. But now he has his Sidestone finally. Or I can't quite remember what it's called in patch 8.2. But he has the ability to lay down wards. Let's just put it that way. So now finally Wolf can start to actually be a part of this team and help them fight back in terms of vision, which SK Telecom they desperately need. They're trying to clear their own jungle of vision, especially now with the Drake respawning in 1 minute and 30 seconds and it being a Mountain Drake. They would love to get that. Because KSV, unfortunately, they don't have a lot of long ranged attacks. So if they get this Mountain Drake, then every siege or every time they get onto the Baron would just be so much more devastating. And talking about the Baron, you also have the Cassiopeia. And Cassiopeia, she is one of the best Baron takers. So you don't want to allow her to get 10% extra true damage to Baron. So, I think that's a well executed dive coming in from SK Telecom. What I don't understand is QV is back at base right here, right? You already have 4 people at SK Telecom, and then right here, exactly the moment that Ruler dies, QV teleports in. Why would you do this? Your mid laner doesn't have the Unsealed Spellbook, so you're not getting any help from the mid laner. Your jungler is currently on the Rift Herald. He has already given up, so it's a lot of miscommunication right here. What is QV supposed to do here? You have Core JJ, yes, but that's no damage. You're basically asking to get killed and give over a triple. So very weird decision from KSV. They die, 3 people. They obviously lose the Rift Herald on the side of SK Telecom, but they don't mind because they get these kills. They get the first blood tower too. So it's all fine and giggles for SK Telecom. KSV should just have given up 2 kills and then gotten that Rift Herald. Then that wouldn't have been that problematic for them. Then they could have sent, let's say, Ruler. Sorry, not Ruler. They could have had Crown and QV go up to the Rift Herald, get that faster, and then they would have been able to perhaps get another tower in the mid lane. Just anything else than this, something that would have given them more momentum, would have been so much better. And now, because of them giving up these 3 kills and 2 of them going over to Blossom, Blossom is stronger in the sense that he's more tanky. And because of this meta revolving around team fighting, revolving around staying together as a team, sorry, Blossom, who is now more tanky, is able to soak up more damage, so initiate more fights, as you're seeing right now, and generally just make his team as a whole a bigger threat towards KSV. You can see here he engages, but he is so tanky. He's taking literally no damage from Ruler, and obviously Ruler, only with the Trinity Force, isn't packing a lot of damage, but nonetheless, Blossom is just very far ahead, and he is a big threat to KSV, who are now just putting themselves in such a bad spot because they're fighting all over the place. It's looking like they're not really communicating that well together. Their idea was to scale up. That's what they were looking for. And you can see how Crown is still doing fine. Has the Tear of the Goddess, has the Rod of Ages, is even ahead in terms of CS. Obviously, probably behind in terms of gold because of Faker having 1 kill and 4 assists. But he's doing fine. You have Ezreal, who is still scaling up, has the Tear of the Goddess, just got the Trinity Force. But Ornn is falling apart. Haru on this Camille, without him being ahead, or at least even, there's not going to be a lot that Haru can do. And KSV, they're just trying to force these fights all over the place that they shouldn't, because right now, SK Telecom, they are the strongest team because you gave too many kills over to Faker and Blossom. They are very tanky now, and despite Bang only having the Ginsu's Rage Blade, he can deal a load of damage without too much trouble at all. And this is a really good graph to illustrate this idea of Blossom, because Blossom, he had a lot of problems in the early game, where he was kept down by Haru. Haru kept on warding up his jungle. He kept on trying to find out where he was so that he could protect his lanes and allow them to scale up. Still, Blossom had 2 out of 3 successful ganks. I would love to know, I would love to know what a successful gank is, but nonetheless, he had 2 out of 3 successful ganks. Haru had 0 effective ganks out of 3. So this means that Blossom, who was put very far behind, was able to find these small cracks in KSV, who was just very, very passive in this early game. I don't think that they played it badly. I think that they had some good ideas. They never were able to find the fight. But Haru, trying to keep the lid onto Blossom and trying to find him all the time with the help of wards, it was smart. But when they gave up that triple kill down in the bottom side, they also put themselves in such a position where the tankiness of Faker and Blossom would just be too much to handle. You have a well-fed Vladimir to deal with too. You have a well-fed Bang, who is so far ahead that the tanks of SK Telecom will just be too much for KSV to deal with, and therefore they are in such a bad position that they're not really going to be able to deal with Bang and Fall at this point in the game because of them having this much damage and having this front line. KSV, they need to scale, but I'm not quite sure that they can do so. QV in the bottom side are holding his own against Fall. But Haru, whenever he jumps in, he will just be deleted immediately. Look here! Blossom is taking no damage from Crown. Crown can't do anything in this game as well, despite him being probably the strongest member of KSV. So looking at the way that this Baron is being set up, there's not a lot of vision from SK Telecom, unfortunately. Tracker's Knife is active for Blossom, but I don't think that he has put down 3 wards. Some of them has probably been removed by some of the sweepers coming in from KSV. You also have vision coming in from Wolf. I'm not quite sure if he has placed that much, but they don't have that any vision, to be honest, really to play around with here in the jungle. So Baron is not a real opportunity yet for them. And a big problem for SK Telecom is also that they haven't gotten the mid lane tower, because without the mid lane tower, they're not in a position to try and go for the Baron as lightly. If they had the mid lane tower, then they would have been able to push the minions in further and therefore create more pressure onto KSV. But that's just the next step to try and get that mid lane tower. But it's hard to do so. SK Telecom, they do have that 4,000 gold lead, but it's just looking like they're having a little bit of trouble finding out what they're supposed to do with it. They should group up mid lane. In the sense that they should go for 1v1. That's what they're trying to do right now. By having Faker in the top side, he has no teleport, and Baron is the next objective for SK Telecom to take. So send him up to the top side, let him push in all the time, have Fall down the bottom side, and then Wolf, Bang, and Blossom in the mid lane. Because if they can push this way, if they can get that 1v1 going, then they can create multiple lanes of pressure, and ultimately just tear down the mid lane because of KSV having to respond to the other lanes. Another Ocean Drake, however, going over to SK Telecom. So even more regen in these side lanes will help SK Telecom a lot. I'm fairly surprised that they haven't taken down the mid lane tower yet. Okay, never mind. They're seeing a fight. no vision really to talk of from SK Telecom. Yeah, that's a good fight. Crown being caught out didn't have the flash, so nothing that he could do there, and obviously KSV also running the wrong way. Blossom stealing away that big raptor. But that was a good fight actually from SK Telecom, and it fairly only succeeded because of them being this far ahead. I don't want to take away any praise for them, of course, but Crown and Ruler, they are looking to scale up. They don't have any damage yet. And Faker and Blossom, they are just that tanky that Crown can't deal with them. Neither can Ruler, and therefore KSV, they just, fall prey to the tankiness of SK Telecom. And off of this fight, Crown should have known that SK Telecom were coming. There's a lot of vision from KSV in the jungle of themselves, so they should have known that you had Blossom coming up. Will Howard be able to steal this? No, he will not. So yeah, Baron will go to SK Telecom, but for Crown, he should have known that SK Telecom, they were coming up there. He had the vision in the jungle. Obviously, they could have had some vision down towards the river entrance of the jungle. But still then, Crown should have known that there would probably be a collapse at some point. He was also very far pushed out. So I would say that was a problem of Crown. That's why SK Telecom were able to get the Baron, because of Crown just being too far ahead. Look here. So, yes, I know that Blossom comes in over the wall. But Crown is just so far away from his tower. He doesn't even have any minions to kill up there. He probably killed the last one just a few seconds ago. Let me check. No, he didn't. He had no reason to be all the way up there. There was no minions. He had just probably killed some further up, but he should not be in that position at all. Blossom comes over. They had seen him in their vision. He walked over a wall to get over the wall. So Blossom comes in. Crown is the mistaker right here because of him being this far up. He's the reason that they lose the Baron, and KSV tries to teleport in to try and help him. He comes all the way in from behind. He should have just cancelled his teleport, because there's no way that KSV, they win the fight. There is no way they can actually fight against SK Telecom in this position, because of SK Telecom being so tanky, and because of all the damage from KSV still scaling up. They have no damage. Ruler, Crown, they have no items. Look at Ruler. He only has a Trinity Force and a Mirror Mana. Compare that over to Bang, who has the Wits and against his Raceblade and a big front line to play around with. Crown only has the fully stacked Rod of Ages and the Morelomicon. That's no damage to talk about from these late game scaling champions. So for KSV, they should not have been in that position. They should have just allowed Crown to die and then tried to perhaps stolen away the Baron, or tried to poke down SK Telecom so that SK Telecom could have not taking the Baron. KSV, they literally just gave SK Telecom the opening that they wanted to get that Baron, and now, because of SK Telecom having the Baron, because of them being this far ahead, there's nothing KSV can do. SK Telecom have over 10,000 gold lead, for crying out loud. There's nothing that KSV can do at this point. They need a miracle. This is why I'm also thinking that SK Telecom, they win this series. Like, there's no way that KSV, they come back right here. With them being this far down, not even 30 minutes into the game, because them wanting to scale so much, then they'll need at least 15-20 minutes more to make this composition work, and they won't get it. SK Telecom, they're knocking on the front door now. They have the Baron buff, and this is about to be the game because of SK Telecom just playing really well off the mistakes that KSV, they made in this game. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that SK Telecom, they win right here. But yeah, that was a speed VOD review of the SK Telecom T1 versus KSV eSports game 1. Might do game 2 later on today. We'll see. I'll nonetheless upload this now. Thank you all for watching. Obviously, check out my social medias if you want to to hear more about me. But thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.